Hey everybody, I'm just going to give it a couple more minutes to see if anybody else logs on. So just sit tight. Okie dokie, looks like we had a few more people jump on. So why don't we go ahead and get started. Thank you everybody for joining me today on this lovely Friday. My name's Lindsay. I'm a licensed clinical mental health counselor associate here at Child and Family Development. And today I'm here to talk to you about my second part of the Back to School series, which focuses on re-entry anxiety. If you missed last week's episode or webinar on stress management, have no fear. You can view the recording on our YouTube page. For today, let me go ahead and see if I can share my screen, pull the PowerPoint up. All right. Okay, so today, again, we're here to talk about re-entry anxiety. So let's start with worries. So human beings have this incredible ability to think about the future. We think ahead, we are able to anticipate things, plan for things. It's great. And it provides us the opportunity to kind of think about solutions for potential problems. However, when we are constantly wondering or thinking about things that haven't happened yet, we can become stuck and find ourselves quickly going through these like what if worst case scenarios. We tend to refer to this as catastrophizing. It's totally normal to have worries, and everybody worries to some degree. Thinking ahead, again, can help us with planning and coping. There's no right amount of worry. However, we do say that it tends to become an issue when it stops you from living your life. So with that, when there are immense amount of worries and it starts to have a negative impact on your life, that's when it's possible for it to turn into anxiety. Anxiety is considered it is a mental health condition that's defined by persistent and excessive worries, typically leading to avoidance of situations. This can show up in a multitude of ways. It could show up in social situations, phobias, and just lead to avoidance of, whatever is anxiety producing. Anxiety disorders are very common. Research by the National Institute of Mental Health found that 19% of Americans over the age of 18 had an anxiety disorder over the past year. And that throughout their lifetimes, about 31% of Americans will experience anxiety or an anxiety disorder. And so while that focuses on adults, the CDC actually reported within the last year that 7.1% of kids ages 3 to 17 have a diagnosed anxiety disorder. Typically, the most common type of anxiety disorder is generalized anxiety disorder, but there are a few other types such as panic disorder, there's social anxiety, as well as some phobias. And it is important to note that you can experience anxiety and not meet the actual requirements for like a diagnosable anxiety disorder. So you might be wondering what contributes to anxiety. Researchers are finding that both genetic and environmental factors contribute to the risk of developing an anxiety disorder. Although risks can vary depending on what kind of anxiety disorder you might be experiencing, some general risk factors for all of the different disorders relate to temperamental traits. So somebody who is maybe more shy or behaviorally inhibited during their childhood. It could be exposure to stressful life events or negative experiences. Global pandemic could definitely be a trigger. Or even just like a family history of anxiety or other mental health disorders or conditions can definitely contribute to the development of anxiety in kids. There are also some physical challenges or disabilities, conditions that can contribute or exacerbate these anxiety symptoms and develop it into an actual diagnosable disorder. Some of those things that could be caffeine, thyroid problems, heart challenges, anything like that can definitely develop the symptoms related to anxiety. So what does anxiety look like? Looks like different things for different people. Typically, anxiety can look like feeling restless, keyed up, or constantly on edge. Clients and kids often report stomach aches, maybe digestion changes, either constipation or irritable bowel. Could look like headaches, tense muscles, heart-related challenges with like rapid breathing, rapid heart rate. Could be sweating or even just like clammy hands. Oftentimes kids will report increased fatigue, maybe challenges with sleep, not sleeping enough, sleeping too much, maybe falling asleep is hard, or constantly waking up at night. Challenges with concentration, that's a big one, especially as we return back to school. Changes in mood, typically feeling more irritable, and again, going back to having those tight muscles, can all be symptoms related to anxiety. And if you were here last week, you might be thinking like, wow, those sound a lot like the symptoms related to stress. So are stress, anxiety, and anxiety the same thing? No, but again, if you were here last week, stress is something that if it's continual and goes untreated for a prolonged period of time, chronic stress can develop into anxiety. Both stress and anxiety do show up in similar ways like we discussed, but stress tends to be from an external trigger, whereas anxiety is more internally experienced. And anxiety does not discriminate anybody, any age, any gender. Anybody can experience anxiety, even when things are going well. And types of worry that develop into anxiety can relate back to things that are ambiguous, like not knowing. That's a huge trigger for worry that can develop into anxiety. New situations, anything new, and those things that are unpredictable. So clearly in this last year and a half, that's been pretty wild. There's been lots of unknowns, lots of new situations, and lots of unpredictability. So it's no wonder that some kids and adults are experiencing increased anxiety related to the pandemic, whether it's staying home, staying quarantined, or having to re-quarantine with this new Delta variant, or maybe it's getting back into the situation of like going to school or going back to work. Maybe that's really anxiety producing. All different situations can kind of relate to school. Again, like, kids who maybe enjoyed staying home, extra family time with the dog, doing schoolwork in their PJs, super fun for some people. So the idea of leaving that comfort and going back into school, navigating those social situations or maybe the workload, teachers, and just having to be in that routine all day, every day could be really anxiety producing. And on the flip side of that, maybe your kids totally dreaded virtual school. And so they're eager to return back to school, but the worry about what if we have to re-quarantine? What if we have to go back to virtual school? That could be a really anxiety producing situation for them. Or it could even be a combination of both of those things. So what do we do with this? Some ways to manage anxiety, I'll go through these ones. And there's a multitude of other ways. So I'm happy to answer any questions either at the end of this webinar or via email or phone. But some of the best tips to manage reentry anxiety are focusing on what's in your control. So this could be having routines, having structure, managing expectations. So this could be like going to your kid's open house for school. It could be meeting the teacher, seeing the classroom, just seeing the school if the kid is unfamiliar with the school. This also could look like preparing for the classes, maybe getting a tutor if we know that a specific subject is hard. Anything that we can do to kind of help the kids control what they can, because there are still so many unknowns. Reframing worries into focusing on things that they're excited to do. This could be something like rekindling friendships. I know for a lot of kids stayed virtual all year, so there was so much significantly reduced social interaction. So maybe focusing on kids getting to see their friends again, or maybe getting to go back into that after school activity is something to look forward to. Acknowledging feelings and working to accept them. So this is big. Parents, you can do a great job helping your kids by modeling like, hey, I am feeling uncertain about this too, and it's definitely scary, but we can get through it. So reframing, again, to take a positive outlook on it, acknowledging that this is hard and modeling how to deal with that is huge. Research also shows that name it to tame it actually works. So acknowledging that we're feeling anxiety or stress or just like maybe anger or sadness, acknowledging any and all of these feelings are huge for helping your kids kind of like understand, accept, and work through them to be able to work through and be more comfortable with what's ahead, because there are still so many unknowns. So normalizing it is huge. Reintroducing activities slowly. This is a big one. I know for many families wanting to jump back into all the after school activities, the clubs, the camps, the sports, the everything. That's great. However, going from 0 to 100 real quick might not be the most productive. So reintroducing activities slowly, maybe just adding one sport or just adding one club would be a good start. Let your kids get comfortable with the new routine, the new structure. Having had so much back and forth with virtual and in-person last year, going back fully in person this year, or at least for the start of this year, is going to be a big adjustment. Kids might be a lot more fatigued, not used to having to have those social interactions all the time, be on all the time. And so we might, as parents and adults, want these kids to get back into the routine of things really quick, thinking it might help them. But it could be counterproductive. So making sure we kind of ease back into things, ease back into those those schedules, and have that structure will be big. Stay informed, especially with the new developments of the Delta variant. Again, not wanting to put fear into the world, but being aware of the situation, being up to date as parents can help you help your kids to understand what's going on, how to prepare for that, how to focus on what's in their control. Maybe it means staying in the know so your kids know if it's okay to wear masks or if they don't have to wear masks, and just kind of knowing what to do to kind of get everybody on the same page. And then acknowledge and work to accept that your life, your kids' life, everybody's lives may have changed during the pandemic. This could relate to values and interests. Maybe having all that time at home has sparked new interests, new hobbies, and maybe this is a good way to explore those. On the flip side, maybe it negatively impacted quality of mental health. Maybe there is more anxiety or depression, and that's okay. Acknowledging it, though, is super, super helpful for your kids. Maybe they're worried about peer situations at school, having to navigate bullying, or like, what if they forgot how to make small talk? Acknowledging that and helping them work through those, maybe practicing with them before the first day of school, especially if they're little, like, what do you say to a teacher or somebody you might want to be friends with? That can go a long way. And recognizing too that just the way we were living during the pandemic could be something that's totally different from what they're used to. So being patient and kind to yourselves and your kids and helping them be kind to themselves will go a long way. And lastly, reaching out for help and support if you need it. I know parents, you guys are totally capable. However, in the event that things become maybe overwhelming for you or feel like it's maybe more than you can handle, reach out to a therapist. This is exactly what we are trained to do. We use all kinds of evidence-based interventions to help kids with specifically anxiety or depression, stress management, all kinds of interventions and activities and tools that can be helpful for both kids and parents to work through these worries and concerns. And for a few other things, while knowing all these strategies to help manage stress that are great, sometimes it doesn't do it all. So I've included here a list of various coping skills or activities that can be helpful. This is one of my favorite worksheets to use because sometimes when I talk about coping skills with kids, they're like, well, like, what is a coping skill? So here, it's a whole variety of different distractions or alternative activities to do to kind of take their mind off of whatever's concerning them. So this is broken up into animals, taking time to walk your dog. That's a great way to deal with anxiety. It's physical activity. That's great for mental and physical health. Creating things. That is a great way to work through maybe some uncomfortable feelings in a way that doesn't have any expectations for how it's supposed to look. It can be a great way to write down their thoughts or draw their worries, or even just like draw with no expectation of what it's supposed to look like, just to get whatever feelings are coming out onto paper. For the mind, daydreaming is great. Thinking about maybe what you want the world to look like, since we don't really know what direction it's going in right now. Practicing yoga and mindfulness. If anybody's interested, I have a variety of mindful techniques I can work through with you guys. Moving on to schedule. I've mentioned this a little bit before, but having a schedule for morning, for after school, huge. Kids do great with structure. Having routine, having managed expectations, and knowing what's coming next are all great ways to work through anxiety. So having the same bedtime and wake time, that's great. Having like a visual schedule to check off, like, okay, I'm overwhelmed going to school this first day of school. So knowing exactly what needs to be accomplished before getting ready in the morning can be huge. So I don't know, maybe it's shower, pack your backpack, pack your lunch, pick out your clothes, get, whatever it might be, but like having set steps they can maybe even check off each day could be helpful for managing that, all those different things that they have to do before they go to this anxiety provoking thing, being school. I already mentioned this, but being active is huge for anxiety. Exercise gives us endorphins. Endorphins make us happy, and they can fight off cortisol, the stress hormone, which kind of relates to anxiety. So going for a walk or a run, making a family activity out of it, or scheduling maybe play dates with friends to do things that are active could go a long way as well. Music kind of goes with creation. Listening to music that aligns with their feelings could be great. Expression, just name it to tame it, can be super helpful. There's no shame in, letting it out, whether it's crying, screaming, laughing. All the emotions are good and valid. Self-care is a big one. So I like to think of self-care and explain it to my own clients as, what can you do today that will make tomorrow better? Maybe it's going to bed earlier. Maybe it's packing your backpack so tomorrow morning is not as chaotic. It could be, anything that helps to relax and kind of refill up their cups after it gets depleted each day. That's huge. Doesn't have to be a lot, but it should be every day. Cleaning and organizing, phenomenal thing for anxiety. Kindness to themselves and to others. Self-compassion is huge. Acknowledging that it's okay that they're feeling uncertain about things. Spending time in nature can be incredibly therapeutic. Helps with mindfulness and just being present. New activities, well, that could be anxiety producing, could also be a great way to distract them from whatever they are worried about. Sometimes just decompressing in front of a TV and watching a movie could be great. We've already mentioned that planning activities is super helpful. Learning something new is great, though they might be overwhelmed with learning new things as school is getting back into the swing. Connecting with others, family, friends, loved ones. Cooking is a great creative expression that can be great for reducing symptoms of anxiety. There's typically a straightforward recipe that they can manage their expectations and follow the steps, so that's an awesome opportunity. Fixing things or mending things in the home, reading, and writing. Writing can be actually a really, really big one for kids and parents. Having a journal by their bed each night. If they have worries, they can write it down. Doing a brain dump can be wonderful for just literally and physically removing concerns from their minds. So these are all some of my favorite coping skills that I like to share with my clients. Obviously there's more, there's other ways to cope, but I thought this could be a good comprehensive list of all the opportunities that they can use in the event that the other strategies aren't as helpful. So with this being said, let me see if I can pull up the chat, but if you guys have any questions, I'm more than happy to connect via email, phone, anything like that. I'd love to answer any questions, concerns, comments, or if you guys want to follow along with us, let's get social. You can follow any and all of our social media accounts. We have our website, our Facebook, the Child and Family Development Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and LinkedIn. This is a great place to find other additional free resources like more webinars or groups, blog posts, anything like that. We're in the process of doing a back to school campaign, so that could be a great place to check. Let me see if I can. And this webinar too will be loaded up to our YouTube account in case you have any questions or want to rewatch through it. Let me see if I can pull up the chat. Got a question. Where can we find the coping skills mega list? Online somewhere, or can you email? Absolutely. If everybody is comfortable, I get a list of this, the registrants for this webinar, so I'm more than happy to email this to you guys, or it'll be posted on our YouTube page as a part of the webinar. Any other questions from anybody? Not seeing any, but I'll give it a moment. And again, if you guys have any other specific concerns related to maybe your own family or child, you can always reach out to us. We're happy to talk through and do, consultations, anything like that. More than happy to do. So I don't see any other questions popping up, but again, happy to answer anything via email. So if anybody has anything else they want to ask or don't have anything else, I can end it here. Thank you all so much for joining today. So happy I was able to spend this Friday afternoon with you. And again, reach out if there's anything else we can do for you. Hope you have a great rest of your weekend.